Welcome to Concepts Made Easy, simplifying concepts, one topic at a time. In today's video, we're going to understand one of the most important topics in financial risk management, the different types of risks faced by an organization. Every business operates in an environment full of uncertainty. These uncertainties create risks that can affect a company's profits, cash flows, reputation, and sometimes even its survival. Broadly, every organization faces four major types of risks: strategic risk, compliance risk, operational risk, financial risk. Let's understand each of them one by one. 1. Strategic risk. Strategic risk arises when a company's business strategy becomes ineffective because the external business environment changes. In simple words, even the best business plan can fail if the company doesn't adapt to changing market conditions. Some common reasons for strategic risk include technological advancements, new competitors entering the market, changing customer preferences, rising raw material costs, and shifts in market trends. Let's look at a few famous examples. Kodak actually invented the digital camera in 1975. However, it feared that digital photography would hurt its highly profitable film business. Instead of embracing innovation, Kodak chose to protect its existing business. Meanwhile, competitors adopted digital technology, and Kodak gradually lost its market leadership. The key takeaway is simple: strategic risk arises when a company fails to adapt to changes in its external environment. 2. Compliance risk. Next comes compliance risk. Compliance risk refers to the possibility of losses that arise when a company fails to comply with applicable laws, regulations, or government guidelines. Every organization is expected to comply with laws such as the Companies Act, CB regulations, tax laws, labor laws, and environmental regulations. Failure to comply may lead to penalties, heavy fines, cancellation of licenses, or even imprisonment in serious cases. For example, imagine a cement company expanding into the mining industry in another state. If it is unaware of the specific regulations governing mining in that state and fails to comply with them, it exposes itself to compliance risk. So remember this important point: compliance risk increases whenever a business enters a new industry, a new state, or a new country. 3. Operational risk. Operational risk arises from failures in people, processes, systems, or internal controls. Unlike strategic risk, operational risk relates to the day-to-day functioning of the business. Operational risk can be significantly reduced through proper supervision, segregation of duties, automation, strong internal controls, and technology-based alerts that detect unusual transactions. 4. Financial risk. Now let's move to financial risk. Financial risk refers to unexpected changes in financial variables that affect the value of a business. These variables include interest rates, exchange rates, credit quality, and market prices. Financial risk is broadly divided into 5 categories: counterparty risk, political risk, interest rate risk, currency risk, liquidity risk. Let's understand each of these. Counterparty risk. Counterparty risk is the risk that the other party to a contract fails to fulfill its obligations. This may involve failure to repay loans, failure to deliver goods after receiving payment, or failure to make agreed payments. Since it involves the possibility of default, it is also known as credit risk. For example, suppose a supplier receives an advance payment but never delivers the goods. This is a classic example of counterparty risk. Political risk. Political risk mainly affects companies doing business in foreign countries. Sometimes, government decisions in the host country can adversely affect foreign investments. Examples include nationalization of businesses, restrictions on foreign exchange, confiscation of assets, price controls, or cancellation of patents. For instance, if a foreign government prevents an Indian company from repatriating its profits back to India, the company faces political risk. Interest rate risk. Interest rate risk arises because market interest rates keep changing. Both borrowers and lenders are affected. Suppose a company has borrowed money at a fixed interest rate. If market interest rates later fall, the company continues paying the higher fixed rate, making its borrowing relatively expensive. On the other hand, if the company has borrowed at a floating interest rate and market rates increase, its interest cost also increases. Banks are particularly exposed to interest rate risk because both their loans and deposits are sensitive to changes in interest rates. Currency risk. Currency risk arises because exchange rates fluctuate continuously. This risk mainly affects companies involved in international trade. Let's take a simple example. Suppose an Indian exporter is going to receive payment in US dollars. If the Indian rupee depreciates against the US dollar before the payment is received, the exporter receives more rupees after conversion, so the exporter gains. However, an importer who has to make payment in US dollars, more rupees, now needs more rupees to buy those dollars. There the importer loses. Liquidity risk. Liquidity risk refers to the inability of a business to meet its financial obligations when they become due. This may happen because the company does not have sufficient cash, expected cash inflows are delayed, or its assets cannot be converted into cash quickly. Banks often face liquidity risk because there may be a mismatch between customer deposits and long-term loans. Evaluation of financial risk. Financial risk can be viewed from three different perspectives. First is the shareholder's perspective. Shareholders generally prefer companies with lower levels of debt because excessive borrowing increases financial risk. In case of liquidation, shareholders receive payment only after all other obligations are settled. Second is the company's perspective. If a company borrows excessively, it may struggle to repay its obligations and may even face bankruptcy. Similarly, lending money to unreliable borrowers also exposes the company to financial risk. Finally, we have the government's perspective. From the government's point of view, financial risk includes failures of banks, collapse of major financial institutions, willful defaults, and even sovereign debt crises. Such events reduce public confidence in the financial system and can affect the entire economy. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Keep learning, keep growing, with FinConcepts made easy. If this video helped you, do like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next concept.